On the night of April 6, 1968, just 2 days after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, 8 Black Panther Party members, which included Bobby Hutton, Eldridge Cleaver, and David Hilliard, were traveling in 2 cars when they were ambushed by officers of the Oakland Police Department. Cleaver and Hutton ran for cover and found themselves in a basement surrounded by police. The building was fired upon for over an hour. When a tear gas canister was thrown into the basement, the 2 men decided to surrender. Cleaver was wounded in the leg, and so Hutton said he would go out first. Bobby Hutton stripped down to his underwear and proceeded to walk out of the building with his hands in the air. Oakland police began to fire upon an unarmed Bobby Hutton, striking him 12 times, killing him instantly. One police officer who witnessed the shooting later told Cleaver that what they did to Bobby was first-degree murder. Little Bobby Hutton was 18 years old. The conflict leading up to his death would be one of many confrontations between the Oakland Police Department and the Black Panther Party. It marked one of the first deaths suffered by the Black Panther Party at the hands of the police. By 1971, at least 28 other Panthers would be killed by the police throughout the U.S. as a part of the federal government's war of repression against the Black Panther Party and other groups fighting for liberation and equality. 44 years after little Bobby Hutton's death, we still find our communities under attack by the violence of bloodthirsty, crooked police officers, who often police communities they have never lived in, nor do they understand the social conditions of its residents. And though there are some good cops, the crimes of the bad ones seem to overshadow the good deeds of those who live up to the oath to serve and protect our communities. So today we ask the question, who polices the police, and are they doing their job? All of the incidents that continue to take place across the country assist us in answering this question without doubt, emphatically no. In this documentary film, you will hear from the victims of police brutality and from the families of those who are unable to speak from the grave. In this documentary film, you will hear stories that capture national headlines, and you will also hear stories that went no further than the local newspaper. Nonetheless, you will hear crimes of police.
Who do we love? Us. Who do we trust? Us. When it's all said and done, all we got is us. Who do they hate? Us. Try to eliminate us. When it's all said and done, all we got is us. Who on the bottom? Us. Who want the top? Us. When it's all said and done, all we got is us. You need to rise and open their eyes. When it's all said and done, all we got is us. Her, him, me, the ones with physical eyes still refuse to see self-hate inflicted on thee. See, we our own enemy and claiming that we free. Gunshots rang out, coroners bring out no black bodies and no one sorry. Mothers on the front row screaming, crying they heart out. Shortness of breath, then all of a sudden she black out. Pallbearers rock red gloves, they hands bloody. You ever seen a grown man cry with tears muddy? They say revenge best served cold, but his loved one freezing and he won't rest until somebody bleeds. Something like the food chain, killer be consumed. Steal to his goal, pop his head like a balloon. Never thinking that he got an answer to a God, cause to him he is the judge ruling with his iron rod. Who do we love? Us. Who do we trust? Us. When it's all said and done, all we got is us. Who do they hate? Us. Try to eliminate us. When it's all said and done, all we got is us. Who on the bottom? Us. Who want the top?
100 years ago, they used to put on a white sheet and use a bloodhound against Negroes. Today, they've taken off the white sheet and put on police uniforms. They've traded in the bloodhounds for police dogs, and they're still doing the same thing. And just as
Little Bobby Hutton was one from among a long line of Black and Latino men who became victims of the very entity that was entrusted to serve and protect them. During the days of slavery, there were numerous instances where some slaves violently opposed the brutal mistreatment of their slave masters, taking up arms and fighting till the death. Some ended in bloody massacres, like in the case of Nat Turner, where several whites, including women and children, were murdered in the process of the slave rebellion. In this case, who really was at fault? The cruel, wicked master who ruled through fear, intimidation, and torture? Or the poor, brutalized, and battered slave who spared not woman or child in his quest for freedom?
Brutality from sheriffs and from other police forces, from other law enforcement agents, and we feel that before demonstrations can cease, something must be done to end this kind of unnecessary abuse of police power and what we see as outright police brutality.
Prohibition in the 1920s greatly increased the potential for corruption. Massive amounts of money was being made by bootleggers who in turn paid off police officers to allow their illegal activity to continue. The Wickersham Commission, organized by President Hoover in 1929, studied the problems associated with prohibition and found it had caused a number of social and political problems. He recognized prohibition was unenforceable and carried a great potential for police corruption. The Wickersham Commission also provided analysis of police misconduct, which led to systems being formed to protect against it. The civil rights movement of the 60s and the 70s were also marred by police misconduct. Although there was no monetary gain from the action of some officers, widespread violations of the constitutional rights of individuals occurred and racial injustices were committed. The Kerner Commission suggested many reforms in 1965, but despite the implementation of many of the reforms, there was no long-term reduction of corruption. Fast forward to the late 1990s, Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles Police Department is embroiled in the worst scandal in its history.
Prosecutors plan to ask a judge today to overturn more convictions as a result of the ongoing LAPD corruption scandal.
That now brings the total number of cases overturned to 40.
Meantime, the city's dealing with a growing number of lawsuits growing out of this scandal.
Escándalo de corrupción en la división Rampart provocó que nuevos casos.
The Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums, also known as CRASH, an anti-gang program initiated under the direction of LAPD Chief Daryl F. Gates in the late 1970s, had encountered some success in the Rampart Division. However, between 1998 and 2000, graphic allegations of extreme police misconduct among Rampart's CRASH squad began to emerge. This misconduct involved several officers and detectives, most notably Rafael Perez. Perez was suspected to be involved in a bank robbery committed by another Rampart Division officer, David Mack. He also stole 6 pounds of cocaine from an LAPD evidence locker, which eventually led to his arrest. His most egregious act involved the shooting and framing of an unarmed gang member, Javier Ovando. Perez originally claimed that Ovando had opened fire at both Perez and another officer, Nino Durden. The two officers then returned fire, leaving Ovando paralyzed. Perez and Durden then framed Ovando for the attack, and he was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Ovando was later released once Perez admitted to shooting and framing him. After several other incidents, the LAPD became suspicious of Perez and began to investigate him. Perez later pled guilty to the cocaine theft in exchange for information about other corrupt officers within the Rampart Division. Rafael Perez made a deal with prosecutors under which he pled guilty to cocaine theft and agreed to provide prosecutors with information about 2 bad shootings and 3 other Rampart CRASH officers involved in illegal activity. In exchange, Perez received a 5-year prison sentence and immunity from further prosecution of misconduct short of murder. Thus began a 9-month confessional, during which time Perez met with investigators more than 50 times and provided more than 4,000 pages of sworn testimony. Before he was done, Perez implicated about 70 officers in misconduct, from bad shootings to drinking beer on the job. On July 24, 2001, after serving 3 years of his 5-year sentence, Rafael Perez was released from prison and placed on parole. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Robert Perry ruled that due to safety concerns, Perez could serve his parole outside the state of California. On December 17, 2001, Perez pled guilty to federal civil rights and firearms violations resulting from the shooting of Javier Ovando. He admitted to 1 count of conspiracy to violate Ovando's civil rights and 1 count of possessing a firearm with an obliterated serial number.
My name is Alex Salazar. I'm currently a private investigator. I own my company called All American Investigations. I'm a former Los Angeles police officer who once upon a time worked the Rampart Division. I was employed with the Los Angeles Police Department from 1989 until 1998. I wanted to be a police officer because I really wanted to help out people. That was initially my intention to become, a hero to children, to mankind. Help them out with any problems that they might have with supposedly these bad people. Well, I like to think that most officers would take a preservation of life attitude, and not the shoot to kill mentality that often exists within law enforcement. However, with that said, there are times when deadly force is needed to be used against someone that's trying to kill you. Well, certainly there's been a attitude of having a shooting to be glorified. Right. When you take a human life. A lot of these officers, they do have a cowboy mentality, okay, or some of them even to the extent of possibly being on a jungle safari or lost back in time in Vietnam, which is what I witnessed with some officers, that they wanted to get involved in shootings. They wanted to kill people, okay, and a lot of them, they feed into this where they're looking for something to sometimes take them out of the monotony that they're involved in. Sometimes this is labeled as good police work, where the officer is being proactive and aggressive in tackling crime. But there are some officers that become so myopic and focused on seeking that certain element that they deem to be a bad person.
Many believed the Rampart scandal was the worst-case scenario of police brutality and corruption. They also believed that it was a completely isolated incident and would probably never happen again. Little did these same people know or realize another high-profile police corruption case was materializing at almost the exact same time as Rampart, in another California city. It would be called the Ryder Scandal. The Ryder's case stems from accusations by a 23-year-old rookie cop named Keith Batt. He spent 2 months in the summer of 2000 patrolling the predominantly black West Oakland neighborhood with 4 veteran officers before quitting the force, reportedly in disgust. According to this rookie officer, during his short tenure as a cop in Oakland, he witnessed officers assault, kidnap, frame, and falsely arrest residents of the West Oakland neighborhood they patrolled. Riders is the nickname the 4 officers adopted for themselves. They were eventually indicted on 49 felony charges. Matt Hornung, Clarence Chuck Mabanek, Jude Siapno were eventually acquitted, while a 4th officer, Frank Vasquez, fled to Mexico and remains on the Federal Bureau of Investigation's most wanted list. Although then Oakland Police Chief Richard Word described the Riders' conduct as isolated, scrutiny of OPD did not end with the 4 officers' acquittals. The FBI announced their own probe into the Riders. Attorney John Burris and Jen Chaman filed a civil rights class action suit against Oakland on behalf of 119 plaintiffs. Rather than submit to federal oversight of the department as LAPD did to settle the Rampart case, OPD decided to enter into a negotiated settlement agreement with the plaintiff attorneys overseen by federal Judge Thelton Henderson that would mandate a top-to-bottom overhaul of OPD's internal policies. The intention of the NSA is to make sure no officer can go off the reservation in the same manner as the writers reportedly did. 12 years later, the Oakland Police Department is still not in full compliance with the NSA's stipulated reforms. Henderson has ordered weekly reports from the monitors, has threatened monetary sanctions, contempt proceedings, and extended court oversight if OPD does not come into compliance.
That settlement agreement came out, as you mentioned, the Ryder scandal, where there was a rogue band of officers, City of Oakland police officers, who were terrorizing West Oakland, falsely arresting people, planting evidence, and all of the horrible things that you just would not want to believe a police officer, much less several police officers, would be engaged in today's day and time, but they were. Out of that grew the settlement agreement, where there were reforms that were set in place, that were put together by Mr. Burris, Mr. Channon, essentially the lawyers on the case, working with the police department and the court to make sure that not only were the reforms thought of and created and put in policies, created policies that to prevent that type of abuse from happening, but also the court was there to serve as a monitor to make sure that it wasn't just going to be lip service or just a piece of paper that was buried in a policy manual, but actually would be something that would be in effect, that there would be some consequences, if you will, checks and balances to make sure that this was being implemented. As has been documented, the City of Oakland, the police department, has had a tough time making the grade on this. In fact, many times the court, the judge has come very close to essentially saying, look, why are you not making the grade on this? And if you do not make the reforms, if you do not make the progress that's to be expected, then we may have to look at it even more harsher and stricter type of program that may even include the police department being taken over.
The scandal has cost the city over $10 million in total embarrassment. And after all is said and done, it is not the Oakland Police Department that is paying this humongous tab generated by the Ryder scandal. It is the taxpayers who are footing the bill. In 1991, people all across the nation and around the world watched in horror as white police officers brutally beat black motorist Rodney King. Millions also watched as Los Angeles exploded into citywide riots as a result of the acquittal of these same officers after a trial in nearby Simi Valley, California. Many people who have never been victims or witnessed police brutality in Los Angeles thought that the Rodney King beating was one terrible case that thankfully through the intervention of God was caught on tape and could never possibly happen again. However, to blacks and Hispanics living in the ghettos of Los Angeles and the surrounding areas, this was nothing new. The only thing new about it was the fact that it was captured on tape for the world to see. Not since the reign of Bull Connor, the Commissioner of Public Safety during the Civil Rights Movement, had we saw such brutality by police officers on an American citizen. There have been numerous high-profile police brutality cases after the Rodney King televised beating, most notably the case of Abner Louima, a Haitian immigrant in 1997 who was beat and sodomized with a broken toilet plunger by Brooklyn police officer Justin Volpe, or the case of Amadou Diallo, a 23-year-old unarmed Guinean immigrant in New York City who was shot and killed on February 4, 1999 by 4 New York City Police Department plainclothes officers. They mistook his wallet for a gun, firing 41 shots at him, killing him instantly. Malice Green was a resident of Detroit, Michigan, who died while in police custody after being arrested by Detroit police officers Walter Budson and Larry Nevers. Both officers were later convicted of Green's death. The official cause of death was ruled due to blunt force trauma to his head. Nevers struck Green in the head with his flashlight approximately 14 times during the struggle. Sean Bell was unarmed outside a nightclub on the night before his wedding when he was confronted by an undercover and plainclothes NYPD. Fearing Sean Bell had a weapon, officers fired a total of 51 shots into a car that Bell was driving, killing Bell and wounding his 2 friends. Despite all of these high-profile cases, after the Rodney King beating, none had captured the headlines as King's case did. After all, what could be worse than what we all saw done to Rodney King on camera, other than seeing a citizen being killed in cold blood by a police officer on camera?
New video surfaced today in the shooting death of a young man by a BART police officer.
To show a Bay Area transit cop shoot an unarmed rider in the back while he was face down and on the ground. The bullet killed 22-year-old Oscar Grant.
But we also warn viewers you may find the video disturbing to watch and may want to turn away.
They label Oakland as one of the most dangerous cities. I can show you better than tell you you wouldn't believe it. The other day the cops knocked the down, said they saw a gun. Cold thing about it, he ain't even had one. Oakland is one of the most dangerous cities. I can show you better than tell you you wouldn't believe it. The other day the cops knocked the down, said they saw a gun. Cold thing about it, he ain't even had one. This lonely got on my
Oscar Grant was fatally shot by BART police officer Johannes Meserly in Oakland, California in the early morning hours of New Year's 2009. Responding to reports of a fight on the Bay Area Rapid Transit train returning from San Francisco, BART police officers detained Oscar Grant and several other passengers on the platform at the Fruitvale BART station. Johannes Meserly and another officer were restraining Grant. Officer Meserly stood, drew his gun from his waistband, and shot Grant once in the back. Grant was unarmed. He was pronounced dead the next morning at Highland Hospital in Oakland. The events were captured on multiple digital and video cell phone cameras by witnesses on the platform that day. Before long, the graphic footage was all over the internet, viewed by millions. The following day saw both peaceful and violent protests. On January 13th, Alameda County prosecutors charged Meserly with second-degree murder. Meserly was the first officer in California history to be charged with second-degree murder. He resigned his position and pleaded not guilty. The trial began on January 10, 2010. Michael Raines, Meserly criminal defense attorney, argued that Meserly mistakenly shot Grant with his pistol, intending to use his taser when he saw Grant reaching for his waistband.
And the reason why we don't feel it was accidental is because we know that had it been an accident, he would have initially said that it was an accident. And he didn't even just not say it that night, but the day after, of course a week after, he never claimed that it was an accident. What he did claim was that he thought Oscar was reaching for a gun. And he repeated that over and over to his so-called comrades on the police force. Oscar was able to validate what we had claimed was never an accident because his very last picture he took was Johannes Meserly with his taser in his hand. And to add to that, even the fact that in testimony what we discovered is that Meserly had pulled his taser out twice before he actually shot Oscar, and then claimed that he mistaked his taser, of course, for his gun for his taser. But you know, the most important part of this is that Oscar, sad to say, took a picture with Meserly with his taser in his hand before he was murdered.
On July 8, 2010, after only a day and a half of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Meserly was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and the gun enhancement. Judge Robert Perry, who it should be noted coincidentally presided over the Rampart trial, claimed he erred in his instructions to the jury and in the interest of justice removed the gun enhancement guilty verdict, essentially making himself the 13th juror.
Judge Perry set over the Rampart case where many of those arrests were falsified. The city of LA had to pay millions of dollars out to those individuals that had false evidence planted on them, and Judge Perry happened to be the judge over those police officers that got off. He's an ex-DA representative himself. All his decisions is based in favor of the police.
The system has let us down, but God will never, ever let us down. Though the system has failed us, though we fight continually, But you know what? One thing I know, that the race is not given to the swift nor to the strong, but to the one who endures till the end. And as a family and as a nation of African American people, we will continue to fight for our equal rights in this society. The scripture tells us that the rich bribe the judges, and certainly we have seen the judges be bribed.
Mehserle was given a 2-year sentence with good time served, reducing his sentence to 11 months. Initial protests against the ruling were peacefully organized. Looting, arson, destruction of property, and small riots broke out after dark. Nearly 80 people were eventually arrested. The Oscar Grant shooting was even more painful to watch than the Rodney King beating. Here we have a young man lying on his stomach, with his hands behind his back, with no weapon, and is murdered in cold blood as onlookers watched in horror. The cry for justice was heard across the nation, but the cry seemed to fall upon deaf ears. Police brutality had reared its ugly head in Oakland again, in the worst way. Johannes Mehserle has been released from jail and has appealed his conviction. At the time of this film, he is awaiting a decision. Some ended in bloody massacres, like in the case of Nat Turner, where several whites, including women and children, were murdered in the process of the slave rebellion. Oakland, California, March 21, 2009. What started out as a routine traffic stop quickly turned deadly. 27-year-old Lavelle Mixon was pulled over for a traffic violation by 2 motorcycle officers. As the motorcycle officers approached the car, Mixon opened fire, killing both policemen. Mixon fled. Approximately 2 hours later, after some 200 officers from Oakland and surrounding cities combed the area searching for Mixon, 3 SWAT officers were shot when their team found Mixon hidden in an apartment. Mixon was killed in a gun battle with SWAT. When the smoke cleared, 4 officers were dead along with Mixon. The incident will be ranked among the most deadly attacks on law enforcement in California history. The officers were identified as Sergeant Mark Dunnigan, Sergeant Irvin Romans, Sergeant Daniel Saki, and John Hedge. As in most cases, Lavelle Mixon was portrayed as a monster that had no reason or justification to murder good policemen who risked their lives every day to serve and protect. But the fact is, as some who knew Mixon later stated, Mixon was a victim himself in the past of police brutality. He witnessed it growing up in Oakland and became, like many Black and Latino men today, paranoid and afraid of the police. To law enforcement and many people on that side of the fence, Mixon was indeed a monster. But to those who knew him and shared in his struggle to cope with day-to-day life in Oakland, he was a martyr. On the day of the Lavelle Mixon shooting rampage, 1 cop in particular would emerge from the day's dramatic violence as a department hero. His name is Patrick Gonzalez. Some colleagues nickname him Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II. But to many in the Black and Latino neighborhoods Gonzalez polices, he has long been known as something else, a loose cannon. He's left a trail of victims in his wake, says Kathy King, the mother of one of Gonzalez's shooting victims. But he's a valued member of the police department. Multiple lawsuits alleging wrongful death, excessive force, illegal searches, and racial profiling incidents involving Gonzalez has resulted in $3.6 million paid by the city in settlement money. Law enforcement experts say he fits the profile of the bad apple minority in OPD that is responsible for most of the allegations of brutality that plague its relationship with the city's communities of color. Yet Gonzalez has been consistently promoted and deployed into sensitive situations throughout his career, and without public outcry. That's because few know about either his record or his promotions. His extensive personnel file today is off limits to the public, thanks to a dramatic rollback in the transparency of law enforcement records following a Supreme Court ruling 5 years ago. Since the late 1990s, Officer Patrick Gonzalez has been involved in 4 shootings. Officer Patrick Gonzalez has shot and killed Joshua Russell, has shot and paralyzed Amir Rollins, has shot and killed Gary King, and has shot and killed Lavelle Mixon. Each shooting was under questionable circumstances. In the Lavelle Mixon case, Patrick Gonzalez's loose cannon actions resulted in the death of 2 fellow SWAT officers. Patrick Gonzalez remains a paid Oakland police officer now working in the robbery division. Most recently, he was involved in a clash with Occupy Oakland protesters where misconduct was alleged. Hector Jimenez is considered to be another bad apple in the Oakland Police Department. Officer Jimenez has killed 2 unarmed suspects on different occasions, Mac Jody Woodfox and Andrew Maupin. Both suspects were shot in the back. Both suspects was alleged to be reaching for their waistband. In both instances, no weapons were recovered.
It's one of my new poems entitled The Average Black Man. You like it? Hope you like it. The average black man is the opposite of what I want to be. In and out of juvenile hall, penitentiary at age 18. This is the man's vision amongst black males, the opposite of me. No father figure in their life is what's blamed upon thee. My dad gunned down by OPD, but sorrow is only one part of me. So I'm gonna keep moving on, and I'm gonna be what I wanna be. My father was a great, great example to me. See, the streets was all he knew. He was the average black man.
Merrick Bobb, one of the nation's foremost experts on police reform, said most officers rarely fired their weapons, and the ones that do have a greater propensity to use force on suspects. There are correlationships between officer-involved shootings and other use of force incidents in the life of an officer, Bobb said. The use of deadly force has been at the heart of tension between the Oakland police and the communities of color for decades.
Listen, the 7th point of the Black Panther Party 10-point platform and program, which was our basic guiding, agenda, we can say, was that we wanted an end to police brutality and police occupation of our communities and community control of police. So the first wave of what the Black Panther Party did was to address that. Why? Because those were the people that were our only relationship to the government. If you were stopped by the police, you suffered to be stopped and frisked and killed. So you weren't going to be going to court. So we didn't know court, government, city, what does this have to do with us? Our relationship to the government in the black community, we identified as the police, and the police were an occupying force that were oppressing us and certainly brutalizing us.
OPD has been under the oversight of U.S. District Judge Thelton Henderson since 2003. Records obtained through a California Public Records Act request supports Bobb's analysis. A small cadre of Oakland police officers is responsible for a disproportionate amount of controversial use of force incidents. 16 officers currently in the Oakland Police Department are responsible for 40 of its shootings from 2000 to 2010, or nearly half of the total 85 shootings. Misconduct allegations filed with the CPR against these officers would have been public record before the Copley ruling. They are now confidential. Only one officer involved in Oakland shooting incidents, Hector Jimenez, was disciplined for shooting incidents between 2004 and 2008, the most recent years for which records are available. Approximately 1 year after the murder of Oscar Grant by BART cop Johannes Messerly, OPD was in the headlines again for yet another shooting of an unarmed African-American male. Derek Jones was a local barbershop owner that had a domestic dispute with his child's mother. The police arrived, Derek Jones fled from officers into an alley, and Derek Jones was shot and killed after officers claimed he reached for his waistband. Derek Jones was later found to be possessing a small electronic scale.
Hello, I'd like to say to Mr. Jones, first of all, that your son was a real man. I'm his neighbor. I was there when the confrontation got started at 3 o'clock. The young lady was the problem. Your son did everything in his power to stop fighting that young lady. She tore up his business. She hit him in his face several times. She hit him upside his head with a stick. He walked up and down the block trying to avoid her for over 5 hours. Your son is an innocent man. The 911 call was a bogus phone call that brought those police over there and shot your baby. He is an innocent man. Let the truth be told.
Look, Alameda County Sheriff's Department, 7 years. 7 years, all right? And Alameda County Sheriff's Department trains Oakland PD, Berkeley PD. So I know what goes into their training, all right? I know that, all right? And I know they're trained better than that, and they did not follow P&P, policy and procedure, all right? They did not. And that's why this young man is dead. They didn't have to kill him. He was unarmed. The woman had been harassing him for over a year. Every time he called them on her, they arrested him.
With the OPD being under a microscope, so to speak, and under the threat of a federal takeover, you would think that officer-involved shootings under peculiar circumstances would no longer take place. Think again. In the early morning hours of May 6, 2012, 18-year-old Alan Bluford and friends were standing on a street corner waiting for a ride home from a party. 2 Oakland police officers approached the young men, believing one of them was armed. Bluford fled from officers. A foot chase ensued for 2 or 3 blocks. When the chase ended, Alan Bluford laid in a puddle of his own blood after being shot 3 times by Officer Miguel Meso. Initial reports circulated by the OPD stated that there was a shootout between an officer and a fleeing suspect. The officer was allegedly shot in the stomach, and both the officer and suspect were rushed to Highland Hospital, where the suspect later died.
So here's the story. Okay, let's start off with what happened. Alan and his 2 friends were standing waiting for some friends to pick them up near 90th and Birch. The police officers, listen to what I say, were riding with their lights off, approached them with their guns drawn. And then my cousin ran. There's a lot of grown men out here that will run in that situation. There's a lot of grown men and women out here that will run in that situation, no matter your race. And when he ran about 2 blocks, and when he got near a light post, he stopped. My cousin was fast. You've heard a lot of people talk about my cousin's athletic abilities. Anybody who describes his athletic ability says he was fast and he was shifty. So when he heard people's voices and music in a house, and when he got near some light, he stopped. And he turned around. The police officers initially said that he was in a gunfight. They have supposed witnesses that said that he died on the porch steps of the house, shooting in the air where bullets went into his house. They have another supposed witness that said he was running down the streets, shooting randomly. All we know today, what do we know today? Today we know he never fired a firearm. Today we know he didn't die on anybody's porch. He died under a light post. They said that they rushed the police officer and my cousin to the hospital, to Highland Hospital, where he succumbed to his wounds, and the officer was stabilized. They never took my cousin to Highland Hospital. Never. But what do we know today? Today we know that his body laid there for over 4 hours. He laid there. So that's very different than what they've been telling us. What do we know? They initially told us that he died on the porch. The gun was found, and they admit 30 feet from his body.
As in the Oscar Grant case, the community has rallied around the Bluford family. However, unlike the Oscar Grant case, no charges have been filed against the officer involved in the shooting. The fight for justice for Alan Bluford has reinvigorated the Oakland community. There continues to be rallies and protests led by the Bluford family throughout the city. They are devoted and committed to getting justice for their son and are determined to be heard. The Bluford family has retained the law offices of John Burris and has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Oakland. As if the Oscar Grant shooting in Oakland, which was video recorded and watched by millions, wasn't enough, another tragic event was ready to unfold with even more peculiar implications. San Francisco, California, July 16, 2011. 19-year-old Kenneth Harding, while running away from a $2 bus fare evasion, was shot by San Francisco police. Initial reports by police stated that when Kenneth Harding fled, allegedly he fired shots at the police. Police returned fire, striking him and killing him. By the time Kenneth Harding fell to the ground after being shot, there were cell phone cameras on scene to catch his final moments. This is where we see police basically watching him die, with no officer offering him any medical attention as bystanders watch in anger. The story has changed many times since the initial report. At first, no gun was recovered from the scene. Then a mysterious cell phone video appeared, allegedly showing the gun on the ground near Harding, and someone picks the gun up and flees. However, the scene is crawling with police, and it is very hard to believe that not one officer saw this gun lying on the ground. Recently, the police have come out with yet another story.
The gun's going to be about mid-sternum. Apparently, the officer shot, hit the suspect in the leg. So imagine, if you would, an instant hamstring pain pull would cause the person to lurch, and the gun entered the right side of the neck and lodged behind the cheek.
Kenneth Harding's mother, Danica Chapman, gives us some insight into the case.
Video cameras out there that day, but because they fell upon city property, they have confiscated them and, still hasn't released any other information. I went to a hearing last week just trying to get some of the information released, and the board for the meeting was not complete, so they were trying to practice unethically, and somebody threatened to write every board member up if they continue with the meeting, so they had to cancel the hearing. So we have to wait till next month to go back just to even have testimony heard in regards to releasing the footage. I'll never count on receiving justice from them people, but I will always count on receiving God's justice. He'll have the last word in regards to my son's case.
The Kenneth Harding case is yet another case with many questions that have yet to be answered. Like most instances where deadly force is used, this is not an open and shut case. And that's the sad part. You would think that when the life of a human being is taken, so-called justifiably, that it would be a situation where there were no other options for the police.
Well, ultimately, a policy doesn't shoot you. A policy doesn't have a billy club. A policy doesn't write a police report. It's the individual who's there. When I have my criminal defense clients, the excuse of, well, this is the society I grew up in, or this is the home I was raised in, or this is all I know, doesn't count for much as it relates to whether or not they're going to get convicted of a crime. And it's the same, it should be the same standard applied to the officers, because right is right, wrong is wrong. And I don't think you need a policy to know that you shouldn't be shooting a 15-year-old kid in the back of the neck. There's no policy that caused that to take place. That's a decision, a human decision, that's based upon an officer valuing, devaluing, or having no value for human life.
Stockton, California, nicknamed Mudville in its early beginnings, on the surface seems like any other all-American city. But as you probe deeper into the fabric of the city, Stockton is a town facing many problems. Twice voted the National City League's All-American City. However, more recently, the city has been plagued by crime and violence. In 2011, Stockton beat its previous homicide record from 1992 with 56 homicides. With a jobless rate of 18.4%, up from 18.1% a year ago, Stockton, California has one of the worst unemployment problems in the country. The huge percentage of unemployed residents may have contributed to the horrible crime rates in the city. In the wake of such violence, one might ask what role the police are playing in curbing it. Tori Verber Salazar, a deputy district attorney with San Joaquin County, states law enforcement has had to develop strategies for dealing with the rise in violent crime. What are those strategies, you might ask? Between 2010 and 2012, there were numerous officer-involved shootings in Stockton. 3 involved unarmed suspects, all resulting in the suspect's death. On July 22, 2010, James Rivera, a 16-year-old black male, was allegedly joyriding in a stolen van. Police chased Rivera and rammed the van into a house, where the van was lodged with a police car behind it. The police officers claimed they ordered Rivera out of the van, and Rivera began revving the engine of the van. The officers, allegedly fearing for their lives, fired 48 shots into the van, hitting Rivera 18 times and killing him. James Rivera was unarmed. He died a day before his 17th birthday.
Pretty clear that the way these bullets were entered into this boy's body, that they were off to the side, and they were not in imminent danger.
The officer got out their police cars and said, "Get out," and next thing you know, they heard pow, pow, pow. And you see here that how would James be able to hold his hand up, because you couldn't even see if he did hold his hands up. You know, for me as being a mother, by looking at this picture, that I feel my son was knocked unconscious. I don't feel my son even had a chance to hear what was going on. These pictures shows that Officer Peter Smith said that they did not have this type of weapon out there on the scene. From the 27 report that the DA showed supposed to be justified, it was an AR-15. These is a picture that the picture shows that the AR-15 damaged. Shot my son in the head. From the 27 report, said that was the first bullet that killed him. You see right here, my son, James Earl Rivera, arms are disconnected, which had to been sewed back together. And also you see different bullet holes from different area of the body. And you also can see that his arm is broke as well right here. This is the close-up size of the hole in his head. So we as the people in the community want you to look at this and you can determine it yourself what type of weapon was used. And then at the crime scene, when I was there, officers smiling like it's a homicide celebration. You know, and I felt the tribe, some kind of, you know, you lose a loved one through violence. Why is the officers joking? What is the joke about killing a 16 unarmed young man?
This is a picture right here, a pretty suspicious picture. When have you ever heard of a police car on a scene of a homicide with their hood up right here? That's very suspicious to us. Apparently, it was 6 different agencies out there for one thing. Multiple cars were behind James. He wasn't in no way going anywhere. It's just pretty suspicious that they would have a hood up on a vehicle only on one of the police cars, with all these other agencies out here behind him. It's just pretty suspicious that this hood would be up like that. Okay, it's been over 2 years, and we have not received not a police report, dash cam video, his personal property, police report and answers to why they shot our son. It was a total of 48 rounds. 18 of those rounds entered our son's body. He was killed in seconds on the spot. He didn't die in the ambulance. He didn't die at the hospital or anything like that. He died on the spot, on the scene.
Since her son's death, Dion Smith Downs has been very active and vocal, along with other families, in protesting police brutality, even participating in a Trayvon Martin hoodie march and Stop the Violence rally in their city.
We are tired of killing the black and brown Latino brothers. And my husband's gonna finish, and we're gonna show you some pictures. It's tragic, it's really bad pictures, but I hope y'all can. You don't want to see it, turn your head, but we're gonna show the pictures. People power. When Oakland came out here, they gave us love. That's how you know when you hear a cry. See how Oakland is? They don't know how many people came out here, but they came out here for a cause. They came out here to show us hope. You know what I'm saying? Y'all have to look at that. Everybody stop. Wait a minute. Listen, we ain't tired of walking. We're going to go around and walk it on in.
Okay, that way.
But what we doing, we wait till everybody meet. We don't want no open crowd. And we're going to take this away. We want everybody to come up here together. And cried out. I cried so much my face feel tight. I cried too much my eyes burn. I need y'all. I need y'all. I need y'all. I need y'all. Power to the people!
2 years has gone by, and she still hasn't received even a coroner's report, let alone any answers as to why her son was killed. "32-year-old Luther Brown was pulled over by Stockton police on the night of Friday, April 6, 2012, for having no license plates on a newly purchased vehicle. According to Stockton police, Luther Brown ran from police. A struggle ensued. And according to the police, Luther Brown grabbed one of the officer's baton and attempted to hit the officer with the baton. Another officer, fearing for his colleague's life, fired shots, killing Brown.
Well, I feel that that the police is lying on the behalf that I did interview the witnesses, and we had multiple witnesses, and the witnesses told us that not one time did my brother resist. My brother was pulled over. When he was pulled over, he got out. They did a routine search. The other officer went back to the car to check his ID and everything, and Officer Wesley Grinder searched my brother, told him to get on the sidewalk. They said after then, that's when my brother took off the run. Champ started running. When Champ started running, Wesley Grinder presented behind Champ. Champ ran across the street behind a car, which it was a family in the car at the time that seen everything. Then he came back across the street. And when he came back across the street, he got ready to jump the gate between the houses of the duplex. That's when Wesley Grinder shot him in the back from a distance. My brother was shot in the back. Then he beat him off the gate. That's why the gate fell and broke down. Then my brother was resisting. My brother had his hands up like, please don't kill me. I don't have nothing. I'm not doing nothing. He was like, shut up. And he turned my brother over and he put 9 to 8 slugs in my brother's chest. That's murder.
I feel like they took my kid. It hurt me real bad. And my son will never come back to me. And I just hope y'all can make it. I wasn't there on the scene, but I heard that what happened. that my son was chased down, shot in the back, and turned over, and had the rest of the bullet was in his chest.
Well, the reports are saying that Luther had a baton, and witnesses are saying that he did not have it. So I don't believe what they're saying. They shot at him 11 times. 3 were grazes and 8 were puncture wounds. So as far as the mayor is concerned, she doesn't care about the families and what they're going through. She stated in a previous discussion that she does not buy the police brutality,
and so she thinks that the police are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I still deal with that. I miss my brother every day, you know what I mean? And I just, want justice for him, you know what I mean? Because it was wrong, you know? You shoot and ask questions later, you know? The police don't come to help, they come to kill you now, you know what I mean? You can't trust them no more, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? I respect the law, but you know what I mean? There's a man behalf, you know what I'm saying? You're a man before you had that badge on, you know? So you have that badge on to make you, you know what I'm saying, make you God, like you just kill anybody to be justified. But that's unjustified murder right there, you know? You know what I'm saying? If I could turn back time, I was before, because I got older, I got wiser now. I probably did something to make it worse on our behalf by doing something to revenge. You know what I mean? In a sense. But I'm at the East. I know we know who did it now, so we can move on. You know, we want justice now. You know what I mean? So that's what that is. You know.
It's getting hard sometimes.
It's been hard though. It's been hard because Chan was like a father figure in my life, because I stayed with him when I was little. It's been, you know what I mean? It's been hard. You think about it, it hurt. It hurt, man, just to see the way he went out, treating him like he was a terrorist.
In both cases of Luther Brown and James Rivera, their previous arrest records and run-ins with the law were immediately brought up by the police and shoved in the faces of the public, as in some way to justify their killings. On the night of April 12, 2012, James Cook was pulled over by police for allegedly speeding. Cook got out of his vehicle and ran from the police, according to officers. After allegedly being combative with police, Cook was basically tied hand and foot with restraints and brought to a nearby hospital for examination, as this is the policy if police have an altercation with the suspect. Upon arriving to the hospital, it was discovered that Cook was dead. The family of James Cook gives us more details into the case.
It's because James could not possibly run from the police when James had operation on his left leg 3 days prior to his untimely death. So it's near impossible for him to run, to have ran from the police. He looked very stressed out, and then little blood draining from his left leg, and the autopsy that the coroner performed was horrible. Looking at it was very traumatic for me. I no longer trust Stockton Police Department. I lost confidence in them because of the several killings of blacks that have been going on by this police department, and it seems that nothing has been done about it. Something needs to be done. Well, to tell you the truth, our personnel won't rest, and I believe the rest of the family won't rest until justice is obtained. And the police might say that James tried to do this and that, but eventually we will receive justice. And I will do the utmost best I can to make sure that justice is obtained. Because I really believe that James was wrongfully mistreated.
No cause of death has been determined in the case of James Cook as of yet. The family was further horrified to learn that the coroner's office kept body parts of James Cook before returning the body over to the family. The deaths of Cook, Rivera, and Brown have brought the families closer together in their fight for justice. They continue to protest and rally monthly. Most recently, they rallied at the FBI office in Stockton. They hope to get the FBI to launch an investigation into civil rights violations. Manteca, California is approximately 13 miles from Stockton. Nicknamed the Family City, Manteca appears to be just like any other all-American small town. But for one family in particular, Manteca is a city of nightmares. Like Stockton, Manteca also has blood on its hands when it comes to police brutality. On June 8, 2011, Ernest Duenes Jr., a 34-year-old Hispanic male, along with 2 friends, were observed by Manteca police officer John Moody pulling into the driveway of a friend. After pulling into the driveway, Officer Moody pulled his patrol car up behind their vehicle, exited his patrol car with his weapon drawn, and ordered Ernest Dueñez Jr. out of the vehicle by name. Dueñez Jr. proceeded to try and exit the vehicle on the same side that Officer Moody was on, and in the process of him exiting the vehicle, Officer Moody, allegedly fearing for his life, fired shots killing Ernest Dueñez Jr. Ernest Dueñez Jr. was unarmed. It was later determined that Ernest Dueñez Jr.'s leg was tangled in a seatbelt strap as he was trying to exit the vehicle, and the seatbelt strap later had to be cut to remove it from his leg. The driver of the vehicle and witness to the shooting gave an account of what happened that day to local news media.
Tell them, don't move, the officer's in the back. But he pushed the seat forward, and then he went out, but he was tangled to the seatbelt.
I received a phone call from a friend of ours, and they told me that there was a shooting at the house that my son was staying at, and that they believed that my son had been shot. I then went to the scene, and when I got there, the police had it all blocked off, and I went on to ask them if they could please tell me if my son had been involved and if he was okay. And they refused to answer. They said they could not give me any information. And I stood there. They wouldn't let me pass the yellow lines, and they just wouldn't help me at all. They just continued to say that they could not give me any information. And then finally, after I stood there crying for a while and kept asking, one officer said, "All I can tell you is that your son is no longer here." And we didn't find out anything official until maybe a day later, just through rumors, basically.
The hardest part was everything, the way they treated him, the way they shot him, the way he treated him afterwards, and everything that they did, it was wrong, all the lies, all the cover-up, and they're backing up a murderer, and they're doing the same thing. They're murderers too. The DA, the judges, they're all in cahoots with each other to cover up the murders. And wrong is wrong, no matter who does it.
Soon after the incident, Officer Moody was back on patrol. And although there was an investigation being launched, the message was clear that the Manteca police felt Officer Moody was justified in killing Ernest Dueñez Jr. The Manteca Police Department then launched a smear campaign against Ernest Dueñez Jr., vilifying him with his past arrest record and felony convictions, as to somehow further justify the shooting of an innocent man.
My brother was a loving, caring man. There wasn't anything that he wouldn't do for any of us. He was the comedian of the family. He was always making us laugh, always making our kids laugh. He was a loving man.
The Dueñez family has fought tooth and nail for their day in court since Ernest Dueñez Jr.'s untimely death. Their ultimate goal is to get murder charges filed against Officer John Moody. They continue to protest, organize, and join families of other police brutality victims as far as Southern California. The Manteca police recently got a judge to issue a restraining order against the brother of Ernest Dueñez Jr. to keep him from peacefully protesting at the Manteca Police Department, as well as any other place Officer John Moody is discovered to be off duty. Recently, the Dueñez family had a major victory when a judge refused to throw out their civil suit and has given them a court date on their wrongful death lawsuit against the city. The days and nights don't seem to get any easier for the families of the victims of these heinous crimes committed by police officers. They continue to protest, march, and try to make others aware so that they don't become victims too. Recently, there was a verdict day gathering put on by the Oscar Grant Foundation, in which all of the mothers in the area who have lost sons to police brutality were recognized for their strength and resolve to carry on the fight in their sons' names. In Stockton, Dion Rivera continues to mobilize the people in her city with protests and marches. She declares that she refuses to let it be said that they killed her son and she didn't fight back. After officially filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the city of Stockton declared that the killing of James Rivera was justified and no charges would be filed against any of the officers involved. The Brown family, they held their first annual Luther Champ Brown Day, where people from the community Luther Brown grew up in came together to celebrate his life. In San Francisco, Danica Chapman continues to feed the homeless in what is now known as Kenneth Harding Plaza once a month, and she has recently organized a Muni strike to protest racial profiling with regard to enforcing fare evasion. The district attorney's office in Oakland has deemed the shooting of Alan Bluford a justifiable shooting. The Bluford family continues to fight with the support of the community. The FBI is investigating the case of Derek Jones. However, the investigation is still pending. Lastly, the Oakland Police Department is closer than it's ever been to being placed in federal receivership. A judge is considering getting some expert advice on whether to impose a landmark federal takeover of Oakland's police department. Judge Thelton Henderson is looking for guidance before a hearing on December 13, 2012. If the court orders the federal receivership, it will be the first such takeover of a local police department, and it seems everyone involved in the legal battle over OPD is trying to figure out what that receivership would look like.
Well, any relationship, there's two sides. So you must examine both sides. In this relationship between the black community and police in general, there's typically the victims, people who are being victimized, and the victimizer, people who are victimizing the community. We're all pretty familiar as it relates to the black community with the idea of the role of the police officers being the victimizer, meaning they have the gun and the badge and the power and the authority, as well as they're sanctioned by the system, essentially saying you can use force against this community without any type of real recourse or punishment in 99% of the times. But there's also, a role that the victim may play, in that not everyone is quote unquote a victim every time.
Yes, sir.
There are definitely conduct, behavior, and things that I won't necessarily agree with a person who walks through our doors and may want them to represent them in this fight for justice. And I won't allow them to cloak themselves in the credit of people who have spilled blood, innocent blood, and a chance to get an opportunity to get in front of a jury and receive money for conduct that I don't agree with.
Yes.
So, for instance, you might have a situation where a young person or a young person's family may come to me and say, my baby should not be dead. My baby should not be in jail. My baby should not have been brutalized or beaten up by these police officers. I will then ask them, well, tell me how did he come to interact with the police officers? Well, you may tell me, well, he was out committing a crime, he had a gun, beat up somebody, the police are called to respond to that, which we all know the police should, because you should not be out victimizing your community, because that's how it's typically going, is black on black crime. The police are called to respond to that, and then that person wants to run, drive away at a high rate of speed, put everybody in danger on the road, shoot at the cops from out the window, as if this is a movie. Right. I have to live on these streets too. We all have to survive and live and thrive within our community. I don't condone that type of behavior. Yes. On top of that, I know when we get to a jury, into a courtroom, the jurors are not going to look much like you or me, meaning that they're not going to be from our community. So their sympathy level is pretty low. They look at the police officers as being the buffer, as being the line between their community, the middle class community who's going to work every day, versus those people who in their mind they think are victimizing their community and would be more than happy to victimize their middle class community if it weren't for the police being there to hold the line. And so sometimes that's the hardest thing to do in my job, is to explain to a grieving mother who's wondering why her son isn't here, or more importantly is saying, I loved my son and he's not here. What can you do for me? And I have to tell that mother, or tell that sister, or tell that wife, or tell the mother of his children that, you know, unfortunately, the conduct that he engaged in, what he did to put himself in this position that the police responded to, is not something that anybody is going to respect. Yeah. It's not something that anybody is going to reward. And so that's another side of the relationship. Now, just because you may be committing a crime or have committed a crime doesn't mean that, you know, you snatched the purse means that you should be dead and shot down and held and shot down with 10 bullets either. Right. There has to be some proportionality. So by no means am I saying that if you do wrong, you know, that the officers then just have carte blanche or free reign to do what they want to you. Because I do have a lot of those cases where that is the genesis, is essentially a young man is doing something wrong or something unlawful, riding around without a license, driving a car, gets pulled over, and then the officers from that point, you know, then begin to try to have their way with him. I don't stand for that either. There must be some balance on both sides. And there are laws that both sides of the equation, both sides, both persons in this relationship, police and the community, must abide by.
So you know, and today we see that we're back to fear. You know, we're back to the fear of the police. One, you know, I recall an incident when I was living in Georgia, in South Georgia, in a little town called Brunswick, and all these people came, these young people came up to my door talking about, oh, Miss Brown, the police just beat down this boy so bad, and this and that and the other. This is a big boy too, as I later found out. But the short of the story is, here were 20 people standing there, 20. And half of them were, you know, selling a little weed, they living in the project, you know. Everybody had a gun, some kind of gun. All these people standing at my door talking about the police that beat up this boy. So I said, what did you do? You over here. What happened over there? It must have been 100 police out there for you to be standing here telling me about the problem that you just looked at. And what happened is that the guy comes in, thought the guy had some dope, and said, you swallowed it. He said, open your mouth. And the guy opens his mouth. I'm like, who opens his mouth? You had to break my damn jaw if you want me to open my mouth. So the guy opens his mouth, nothing in the mouth. Cop says, well, I think you swallowed it. And starts choking him. And then he starts beating this one cop. Everybody gathered around, so he gets nervous, so he calls for backup. One more cop comes. They stomped this brother so bad, his eyes all closed, bugged, you know, just horrible. And they stand around looking at it. I said, you stood around and looked at somebody get beat up that bad by the police, and what you decided to do is to come to my door and tell me about it, and you want to file a report at the police station? So we used to say back in the day, wait a minute, you're going to tell the police on the police? You're reporting the police to the police. Now, just let's think about what that's about. That's about fear. You're going to run to the police station and fill out a brutality charge or whatever it is. And we said we're not reporting anything. We're not taking no pictures. We don't care if we got pictures or we don't have pictures. We're not reporting the police to the police. If you want to have a red light trial, then let's come on with it. Let's be right here on the street, right here, right now. You want to shoot that brother with me standing over here? Let's see what's going to happen. And so, even though we knew that we could never have a straight battle with the LAPD, the Oakland PD, or any of them, because they had all the guns in the world. And what they didn't have, they could bring in from the various other police departments. We could never win that battle. But on a day-to-day basis, it was an educational program. It was part of our campaign to educate our people that they had a right of self-defense, and that no one should be able to come into your community and murder your people without suffering a consequence. And that was the most powerful part of the Black Panther Party that set in motion the rest of the agenda that we had.
Personally, what I believe that needs to happen to affect change is that the police need to start considering what it's like to be a citizen again. And the citizens have to kind of try to understand what it's like to be a police officer. And the reality that when you go to your job, are you willing to die for your job? Or are you going to use good, solid judgment in terms of the practices you use, in terms of dealing with the people, with the problems? The reality is that police officers deal with hardcore criminals and killers. There are people out there who will kill you in a heartbeat. And the reality is that, as far as the people out there, they have a fear of the police because there are policemen who are out there who will do things that aren't kosher. They will plant dope on you. They will do things that aren't right. So the reality is that there's a double-sided fear going on. The people in the streets are scared of the police, and the police, or some of the police officers, are scared of the people in the streets. And the reality is, I think a lot of it is that they don't understand each other. There needs to be a better practice on officers being put in position to where they know the people in the streets better. They understand what their issues are. If they understand their issues, they will be less apt to do some of the things that they do. And as well as the citizens. I mean, if you're in a situation where the police have told you to stop and pull over or don't run from the police. Stop right there where you are, lay down on the ground and do what they tell you to do. Because if you run and you make any furtive movements, you got a guy who probably just got from behind a desk, who is afraid for his life, who does not and has not ever experienced a combat situation in his life, who is going to be fearful and he's going to make a move that's not the right move. And then, of course, there are those who are out there looking to get in shootings, who are looking to be aggressive and looking to do things that may cause bodily harm to someone because they have that hatred and that negativity in them. So I see the best way to handle that is not put yourself in that situation, to comply with whatever demands are being given you. Don't take anything out of your pocket. Don't take a compass, don't take a water gun, don't take anything out of your pocket. Lay down and shut up and do what you're told if you don't want to be caught up in a bad situation. And I say police officers, don't do shit to people that you wouldn't want someone to do to you. How do you go around? How do you smile? How do you look at yourself in the face when you're taking advantage of people just because you have the authority and the ability to take advantage of them? I mean, what kind of man is that? So I say to both, we both have on both sides there's a responsibility. The people have a responsibility to do the right thing and comply with the police, and the police have a responsibility to do the right thing and treat citizens the way that they're supposed to be treated.
I believe a movie like this is very important and historic too, because I haven't seen other movies that discuss the underlying reasons and causes for police brutality, bad shootings. But I think it's really important because we're living in the year 2013 now, and here we're seeing almost right before our very eyes the destruction of society.
I embarked upon the journey of completing this film after attending the funerals of James Cook and Luther Brown. I guess you can say I was inspired. Police brutality cases continue to pop up all over America, from east to west and north to south. Time will not allow for us to cover each and every case, but in this film, I think we have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that police brutality is no longer just a problem, but it is an epidemic.
Skin jobs, that's what Bryant called replicants. In history books, he's the kind of cop used to call black men niggers.
Fired! Shot fired! On the ground now! On the ground! Get back now! Three at him. Shot fired. Suspect armed with a knife. Stay in control. Get back now! Get back now! both when you come on stage. Powers and North or North. Get back now! Get back now!
Get away from here! Watch him all. I got it. We're gonna clear the vehicle.
Get back now! Get back! Get back! Get back now!
Get my vehicle. Now! Secure. Come on.
He didn't even have me. Get back now! Get down! He's dying! Get back and stay back now! You motherfucker! Better get out of here now!
Back!
What the fuck?
Ma'am, in the vehicle.
What the fuck? Oh my God!
I got her hands.
Hands up! Sergio! Muscles up! He's got a knife on him.
Okay, all right. Stand by.
Ready to clear?
Stand by. All right, Armin, watch him. We're coming to the vehicle here. Watch. All right.
Clear!
Stop him out. Stop him out. Take it back out.
Rest in peace to all the lives lost, the babies, soldiers, innocent bystanders. Prayers goes out to all the families, friends. We miss you. Shit is getting too crazy. They dropping by the numbers, protecting, serving my ass. They want us gunning on us, terrorists running over, carrying orders out. This was corrupted. The subject is to take us out. Man, what's going on? What the problem is? Fucking just kill yourself and let the rest live. Innocent lives lost. I'm talking babies, man. Rest in peace, God, as this world turns.
The power keep us all in our place, design to keep us blind. Death in the market, if it's at stake, they won't attack us like some misfits. Drones in the sky, they putting cameras in the TV. I was watching who now? Cause I just want a piece of American pie. They even charge a lower class high tax. Give us crumbs from the side. I know nothing comes for free, they get a chance to provide. They say there's good laws on the force, man, I really can't tell. Cause every time they see me, wanna pull me over, they wanna take me to jail. Handcuffed, frustration, want the black man to fail. So many terrorists in this country, people living in sin. Kids getting killed for nothing, or please make it in.
Shit is getting too crazy.